Okay, stand by.
Just about 4:45, and take a look at this viral video from La Junta in southeastern Colorado. All right,
They want to be politically smart,
What's going on, everyone? Today I'm joined by my good friend King Chris. I'm sure for the folks who've followed our live streams, you know who he is at this point. Today we're going to cover Luis Elizondo. He is a quote unquote whistleblower, former head of the ATIP program. And for those who don't know, it's the Aerospace Threat Identification Program. Now, I find this topic when it comes to whistleblowers it's very give and take with how much you can actually believe. You've got people like David Grush, and you've got actual military personnel who are still there, like Commander Fravor. Luis Elizondo, in my opinion, before we get full on tinfoil hat, I think he legitimately did work in the ATIP program. He's a former United States Army counterintelligence special agent, former office of the under the Secretary of Defense for Intelligence, which is, from my understanding, a really fancy title or department for not a spy, but he was basically tasked with gathering intelligence and creating these folders of information for terrorists, those type of people. Yeah. So I don't discredit his military background or his professional feats, but when it comes to this ATIP program stuff, I felt like during all of his different recent interviews that there was something off about it. Now, before we kind of dive into our thoughts and whatnot on it, I will be linking the different interviews. He's been on a couple of them. The most well-known, if you guys are into this stuff, is the Joe Rogan podcast, JRE. And really the interesting part about it is he tends to say, it's almost like he has a script that he's reading off of.
Yeah.
So Chris, what do you agree with me on that? Because that was like kind of the most off-putting part about it when I started. Like, I didn't even know who Luis Elizondo was until Joe Rogan, right. And then obviously I'm aware with the ATIP, and then when you sent me that other interview, I apologize, I forget who it is for the folks listening. I'll link it below. But when you sent me that interview and I started listening to it, I'm sitting here like, okay, well, he's kind of saying everything word for word. And that to me seems like, okay, who told him to go,
right,
to go off onto all these different podcasts? Right. And like, what script did they make him read? It almost felt like the government said, hey, let's have a conversation and we'll have some guy write down word for word, we'll have him write down all the bullet points. We'll create a paragraph, or a story for you. And you go around these different podcasts and you basically repeat it. Because to me, it sounded like, again, word for word on some parts.
They're all the same. They're just, he rewords a few things. But to me, he's been in the community for a while. And I don't know, he's always kind of had that dark cloud over him, as kind of like, people not really sure if they could buy into what he was saying, because it's like with David Grush, how much of a whistleblower can you really be if you have to ask for permission what you're saying, or what you can and can't say.
And that's the biggest one, is because when he basically says this like outlandish stuff. And then when he gets pressed on it by Joe or the other interviewer or whoever's interviewing him, he goes, "Oh, I can't talk about that. That's classified."
Right.
So it's like, why are you out here?
That's the easy way out. Yeah, it's such an easy way out of it, and it's just kind of like, oh, well, I can't talk about it. It's confidential. But man, I don't know. It leaves a sour taste in my mouth too.
It does too. And in fact, we were talking privately with each other earlier today. And you were saying how, you think there's at least a portion or fraction of truth behind everything he's saying. And I actually agree with you, but that's also, I think, kind of how disinformation works,
Yeah,
especially from a
exactly.
government standpoint, when you're
Yep.
trying to kind of sway the crowd, or, you know, basically trying to
Control the narrative.
that's exactly what I was looking for. Control the narrative. You put out fractions of truth in a soup of falsities. So it's
That's
to me,
exactly
that's
what it
kind of
is.
what I get from Elizondo, you know.
Well,
And
it's convenient that all these people, you know, within a few years of each other, all came out in the big push for disinformation, and Tom DeLonge and everybody,
yeah,
for what used to be, you know, a looked down upon subject, or something that was straight up denied by the government completely. Now all of a sudden they want to talk to talk to everyone about it, and it's just kind of fishy, you know.
well, and you know, we've talked about this on live streams before. We both agree that Bob Lazar story is probably one of the most compelling, right?
Yeah.
And he even says that, like, of these, you know, you get handed this packet of information, and they're telling one group certain aspects, another group they're giving the same packet, but things are slightly different,
Yeah.
and that's how they control the narrative in that sense, or control the information actually being spread, and also know who's going to go out as a whistleblower, an actual
Yep.
whistleblower, and spill the beans. They'll be
Yep.
able to track down who that is. I think there's a level of that going on here. Now, I will say some of the stuff in the interviews that he's been putting out it's pretty wild, you know, like
Yep.
the he mentions the oil rig and some, you know, a USO,
Yeah.
right, a
Yeah.
unidentified submersive object, I think is the phrase, but it was something like the size of a city block,
Yeah.
passes back at, like, was it 500 knots? I could be
Yeah. 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 It was 500 knots. Yeah. Something like that.
yes. So parts of that, it's like obviously ticks my, like, my tinfoil hat in me, and
Yeah.
I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
this sounds insane. And then he's also talking about different military personnel, you know, seeing not just like one, but dozens, and sometimes even hundreds of these UAPs. But, you know, one thing I'd like to shed light on too is part of the disinformation that I believe he's putting out is that he's almost trying to frame it that, like, these things aren't, like, these UFOs or whatever you want to call them aren't malicious, and that they're benign, and that they're actually here to help us. But it just, something doesn't really add up, because I think, first of all, it's too hard to, you can't, it's a generalization. Like,
Right.
we don't, we don't even know what these things are. How can you tell if they're here to hurt us or here to help us?
Yeah.
And then there's also been stories about, um, you know, uh, attacks in a sense, and
Yeah.
whether or not we instigated the attack or not.
Yeah.
They are not there for as much as we know. Like, there isn't a side on it. Like, you know,
Right.
they're not completely unwilling to blow our planes out of the sky. So
Right.
that's kind of one of the. I'd like to know kind of your thoughts on what you think about that.
Yeah. I'm not sure either, man. I think it's one of those things where there's no real evidence either way, and I think some people just like to, they enjoy the idea that they're nice and they're here to help us. And how many stories have we heard of people, abduction stories, where it destroyed their life? It was so terrifying, and
Right.
the people, the aliens, whatever, were rude, and just it was like a horrifying experience. So I mean, it can go both ways, but I mean, we don't really know there, you know.
Right. So, you know, when it comes to Luis Elizondo, I personally am not going to sit here and say that I can believe every single word he's saying. I think there's
Definitely
a
not.
fraction of truth. I think we both kind of agree on that.
Right.
And, you know, if for those of you who are interested and don't know, I highly suggest you do listen to these few podcasts I'm going to link, because, you know, if you are in the you know, this kind of realm of thought, and you like to dabber, you know, or dabble in
Yeah.
the UFO world, this was kind of a big, this was a big interview, or
Yeah.
when it comes to the Joe Rogan side of it, because of his reach,
Yeah.
and kind of
And
have to just go on.
I was gonna say, whether you believe it or not, it's always good to just listen to it. Pick
Yeah.
what you can from it, just to
Yeah.
hear it, just to make your own decision, do your own research type of stuff. But it's not whistleblowers like him and Grush. Like it doesn't. Don't let it put a dark cloud over everyone that comes out to talk about these things,
Exactly.
because these guys have ties. It's a lot more shady from them than people. There might be legit stories out there.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, that's really kind of what I wanted to express, because I felt like there was a lot of I mean, at least on my YouTube feed, there were a lot of people saying David Grush or David Grush, Luis Elizondo, whistle blows about UFOs or
Right.
ATIP program. And to me, I'm sitting here kind of like, come on. It could have been clickbaity, but at the same
Right.
time, it's like, come
Well,
on, like this guy's works for the government still.
yeah, and you talk about the government trying to control the narrative. They've
Yeah.
pretty much
Yeah.
they've pretty much co-opted the whistleblower term. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
for
So
sure. For
they're
sure.
not actual whistleblowers.
Yeah. Well, listen, folks, I think that does it for today on this topic. I said it a few times before already. I'll link everything below so that you guys can actually, dig it in for yourselves. But I hope you enjoyed the video today. Please come check us out. We normally try to stream Wednesday or Thursdays. Kind of varies with our schedules with work and family and whatnot. But I'd appreciate a like, a subscribe, and come check out our live streams. Thank you.